Hello everybody. This is Dr. Lynn with Wild and Precious Optimal Living. Thank you so much for joining onto our show. And this show is really just a reminder that you have this one wild and precious life. And so now is the time to take care of yourself. And we understand that there are so many different aspects and ways that we can create self-care. And so on this show, we have candid conversations with people that it's about increasing brain, emotional, and body resilience. And today I'm super excited because we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Tracy Norman, and she's calling all the way in from Montego Bay, Jamaica. So for those of you who are in Colorado like me and just, had experienced the snowfall, we're getting a little bit of sunshine and beach just from having Dr. Tracy's presence here. And so today we're going to be talking about how to find our calm and fulfillment for busy people. And I don't know about you, but I totally identify myself as a busy person. So before we get started, we want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, Shedlight Cold Lasers. And with laser treatment, for those of you who've never experienced what laser treatment is, really it's about creating fuel at the cellular level with laser therapy, and it helps to generate ATP, energy production, to actually promote healing. So in our office, we use lasers specifically for people where we're brain training to optimize brain function, and we're also using it with people who are struggling with chronic inflammation, which oftentimes can lead to pain, which can lead to chronic fatigue, mood swings, even GI issues. So we're very fortunate to have the tools that we have, especially with the Shedlight Cold Laser, because it's been such a game changer in our office and also at home. So believe it or not, we also have practice members. There are people who actually utilize laser therapy at home, and it is something that there's great support and resources that Shedlight offers, and we see it from all the gamut. We have practitioners who are using it, where their patients are using it at home to brain train as well too, and practitioners guide them in how to utilize it, even to everyday things like trouble sleeping. Perhaps it's healing a wound. So many different uses, and there's great support behind photobiomodulation, more specifically laser therapy. So if you're a practitioner or you're just simply interested in wanting to learn more about how laser can be of support, specifically Shedlight Cold Laser, I highly encourage you to visit shedlightcoldlasers.com. Again, it's shedlightcoldlasers.com, and they have great resources for you. So now we get to the nice juicy stuff of the show here. Today's focus is really just being able to go into the reality of what a busy person is. And I'm super excited to be able to bounce ideas and strategies with Dr. Tracy Norman and talk about how do we overcome that hump. I don't know about you, but there's times where I joke around with Dr. Sam and we say, we can sleep when we die. And that's such a very unhealthy thought process in this sense too, because we're constantly, it's just a reflection of how little time we have for ourselves. And when we think about busy, we think about busy being like, as like, oh, I'm productive. There's always things to do, and I'm going for my dreams and vision. But there's something else behind busy that we don't realize, that there is a limitation behind the word busy when we describe ourselves as busy people. And it's really an opportunity today to check in with those limitations. And I'm super excited, once again, to have a fellow chiropractor, Dr. Tracy Norman, to share her experience and her journey and how she's incorporated it with her patients, and incorporated with her coaching, and even just really being able to learn from each other today too. So I want, Dr. Tracy, thank you so much for joining us today. And
you are so welcome.
And I know you're calling in from Montego Bay, Jamaica. And so I want you, can you give our audience, a little intro about yourself?
Oh my goodness, yes. First of all, thank you for having me. Just so you guys know, I had to wait a long time to get this spot. You guys are busy and popular on this radio show. Thank you. Thank you. So, yes, I am a chiropractor. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I live in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And self care is a big topic for me because, in order to teach others, I had to first learn it myself. So, I would say that what I teach others, especially others who are in the rat race of busyness and swirling through life without stopping to take a breath and breathe, I've been there. And as a matter of fact, to be really transparent, I was scrambling to get on this show. So it's such a perfect topic for today. And I love, if you get one thing from today, if it's just an aha or a takeaway or something that you can do to slow down the rhythm that's happening inside of your nervous system, then I've come here with success. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Great. And I think, yeah, you brought up just an important factor is when we think about busy and how it affects the nervous system. And for our listeners who are tuning in, it's just like, well, busy is busy. What does that have to do anything with our personal health or our personal life in terms of how we are running? And, as chiropractors, what we're doing is also optimizing the function of the nervous system. So, Dr. Tracy, I'd love to hear from your own description how you educate your patients in saying what does busy mean and how can that be related to the nervous system?
Goodness. Well, I was thinking of actually someone who I adjusted today. When they got on my table, I could feel them kind of spinning, like they hadn't fully arrived. So for me, when I'm palpating someone's spine or nervous system, it feels like they're full. Like there's input all day without much space for grounding. And so when we are operating at that frequency, we're operating out of our adrenals or our sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
And out of our parasympathetic, which is rest, digest, heal. And so many people are running through life right now and getting what we call the term burnt out. So, what was the second part of your question? How do I explain that to?
Yeah, how do you help your patients
I always practice simple full terms. I'll say something like, "Wow, you're really full today. You've got a lot going on, or your brain is full," and they're all like, "Yeah," or "You're on my table, but you haven't arrived yet. What you thinking about?" Because a lot of people, it's like they scramble to get to their appointment on time, and then they get on the table, but even though they're there, their mind is thinking about like what's next, right?
Yeah.
I know you had talked about the presence of slowing down.
Yeah, absolutely. That absolutely ties into our thought too. Is just like one of the limitations behind being busy when we describe ourselves as being busy is it keeps us from being fully present in the moment. And you had just described just the process so beautifully of when people are coming in, they're literally rushing from like the last meeting or a Zoom call or work or picking up their kids or dropping their kids off somewhere and then coming to the office to see you. And I can completely relate to that in the sense of I do it myself when I go to appointments, and I also see my practice members, my patients go do that too. And oftentimes, what a great way to be able to pause and slow down and tune into like what's going on right now. And so, I think for you, Dr. Tracy, like how do you feel like being busy keeps a person from being present?
Well, if I were to give an example,
Yeah.
and a mom of young boys, so
yeah.
There's a lot of juggle. I have a almost 3-year-old and I have a 5-year-old, and some of the patterns that I will catch myself in is like the phone. Being like we're living from these devices right now, and even if we're like our children are right near us, it's easy to like be doing something while also answering a question for our children or the people in our world, which is very not present at all, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that being busy, oftentimes we're ahead, step ahead.
Yeah.
So when you're a step ahead, you're not actually present, right? So we are not observing our breath or our posture, like our feet on the ground, or even the food that we're chewing. And it's a real disconnect from presence.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like a constant practice to just check in to, like, for instance, even when we're having a conversation right here, right, on the show, or like having a face-to-face interaction with someone, with your kids. I found myself whenever I'm not present is I'm trying to play with my kid, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I need to go check this email. I didn't get that email sent out. Or I'm thinking, I'm already planning my next steps before I'm even, while I'm like in the process of doing something. And it oftentimes takes away the focus on perhaps what we're doing at hand, the appreciation, being able to slow down, and suddenly the mind just feels so busy because there's so much external distractions that we can easily pull away from. Isn't that true? And that's, when we're busy, we get pulled away from what's really going on at hand and really truly appreciate the moment. So I'd like to be able to just ask you from your own personal experience, how, because you moved from the States. Where were you living originally?
I am originally from Massachusetts, and then I journeyed around when I went to college and chiropractic school. So I went, from East Coast, I went South Carolina, Georgia, transferred out to California,
Yeah.
and I did a practice on Maui. I tend to gravitate, interestingly enough, towards islands, which for me,
Yeah.
you get to experience like kind of a slower pace of life. Like it really does work for me. But as you were talking, I was thinking of like, what are the things that like draw me back into the presence? And the first thing that came to my mind, which you probably experienced in Denver, is nature.
Right. Yeah.
Nature.
Absolutely. And so I wanted to ask you, during your journey in your travels, how how is it different from Massachusetts? I'm sure you experienced a very different quality of life. And then how did that idea of presence shift for you in your own personal travels and eventually being able to settle in Jamaica?
I mean, you can't really compare Massachusetts.
Right. Yes.
It's my roots, but this is where I'm rooted.
Yeah.
They're just really different for me. For me, it's a feeling. It's a feeling of like, oh, I feel alive here. So the journey of and I think I'm like the one like black sheep in my family that likes to travel and explore. So I actually learned a lot about myself and my own presence through travel.
Mm-hmm.
And ending up in Jamaica, that's a whole chapter book of a story, which started with a service trip when I was in chiropractic school, and then like big full circle around in 2012.
Yeah.
For me, it was just a feeling. I'm like, wow, I like the lifestyle here. And to tell you the truth, it's like it's not like the calmest island. Like it does move fast, and when living on an island is very different than vacationing on an island. It's life, and you still like there's bills that have to be paid, and there's all the challenges that come up anywhere. So I really have been accustomed to the fact that like paradise, right? People are like, oh, you live in paradise. It happens within. Like you still got stuff going on the inside. It's going to happen on an island or in Massachusetts or in Denver, right?
Yeah. That's a good reminder to have, is just, you can be anywhere where we may perceive, oh, Jamaica or on a beach somewhere, you should live a very easygoing life, but there's still our own internal challenges that we're learning to overcome. So I'm curious, as you were traveling, what motivated you to travel, and what drew you to, I guess, what was in that process of traveling, what were some insights you saw yourself shifting or gaining or changing over time from your travels?
Oh gosh, I think it was just the very first time I ever came out of the country. I think it was Jamaica or maybe Mexico, but I remember just feeling like, wow, it's just so different. So I was very intrigued. I love people, I love food, I love culture. And to tell you the truth, when I was graduating chiropractic school, I was like the only one that didn't know where I was going to go. I just saw the world, and I wanted to serve people on a global level. So that really inspired me for sure. And the more I journeyed, the more I traveled, I just felt like it opened my heart more. I felt like I could feel my heart just opening up through these greater connections, and through knowing that even though we're from different cultures and different regions, there is an interconnectedness. And so I think being a chiropractor and studying people and the way they live, and what interferes with that expression of life, like it started to be like more of a global awareness. And then I don't remember what I'm sorry, your last questions get lost. Like it's like I
Oh,
get the
I
first
have to learn to calm myself down. So I'm more curious, what did you learn in your travels
yeah,
in terms of
yeah,
the busy life that in contrast to being busy?
yeah. Um, I think that the more like indigenous people,
Yeah.
they've got it going on. You know, they're wearing bare feet in the earth, and they're following the rhythm of the sun going up and the moon going down. And there is something to be said for people who are still in harmony with that.
In harmony with
That's big, and I'm not indigenous, and nor do I
nature.
rise up when I go to bed. But I do think there's a lot, and also I think that when people like eat from the earth, and they, you know, they're a little more connected to the foods that are grown seasonally where they live. There's something to their microbiome and their whole, you know, the way that their foods digest and the way that they're energized versus the fast-paced, quick fix, you know, fast food, like that whole lifestyle that does exist in the busy world. That was one thing for sure. And the other thing is that chiropractic works everywhere. You know, I just feel like everywhere I go, my hands and heart get to come with me, and it's been really fascinating to serve people all over the world because it's a profound healing tool, and that's one of the things that I feel very grateful. I feel very grateful to have this tool to share with people wherever we go, wherever
Yeah.
I go.
That's awesome. I feel like, you know, for listeners that may be like, oh, I wish I could travel, but I can't, right? It's also that lesson too, just hearing, it's just being able to, as you had alluded to earlier, being able to get into nature and being able to take time to just get in sync with our own personal harmony of different cycles of our own personal lives or just cycles of nature to different seasons and being able to honor that and finding connection with nature really helps to slow the mind down, even if it's just like a little bit of a 5 minute break outside and enjoying the sun. You know, coming from the perspective of us living in the suburbs in the city where maybe not necessarily accessible to different cultures or like or nature as easily, but different, even just going out and enjoying the sunrise or sunset makes a big difference too. So
Well, I was introduced to a tool when I was living on Maui. You know, one of my patients actually introduced me, and every time I had friends who would come visit from the mainland, she would lend me this like far infrared crystal mat, which I now have and have used every day for like 11 years. But at the time, she would say, "Oh, you should let your friends use this. They will be so much more relaxed. They won't have jet lag, da 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 da." And I just kind of observed it for a while, and everyone they would just like melt on it, and it was very grounding because it was emitting far infrared light and negative ions. And what I started to observe is what they were all mostly coming from, you know, working inside buildings with artificial lighting in front of computer screens. And so
yeah.
there was this real rhythm of like, not only at first I was like, oh well, they're coming to an island, how much more relaxed could they be? But then that almost like gave their bodies permission to unravel that adrenal burnout,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
something you said too is that you know, serving on a global level and maybe not traveling, I realized after a while that for my own self-care, I needed not to be so busy. I needed to really honor my rhythm and like, yes, I have this big global vision and I want to serve thousands of people, but I have to shift. I have to shift the vision because there's only a certain level of busyness that my body will uphold before it just does not feel like it's in balance. You probably feel that too in your practice.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm really curious too with when you talk about global level, what does that mean for you? Like what is that part of your vision in the global level?
Oh my goodness. So right now I am actually creating and designing a leadership team with a company that I work with. It's an online company. We have some fabulous products. And when I really tuned into the fact that I can't do it alone, I decided, well, how about build a team and do it globally and make a like an even larger impact than I can do personally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing right now. It's not chiropractic, but it does go. It's connected to my vision of continuing to help people heal and learn to take care of themselves on a personal level, and then in turn be able to share it with others so that others can learn to heal and take care of themselves too.
Awesome.
Like the ripple effects. I think not everyone is taught how to take care of themselves. And quite frankly, for a lot of people, it takes them being really sick or like having a health crisis before they finally slow down with the busyness and turn and look within and say, okay, I got to do things differently.
Yeah.
And so turning enough people on to different concepts so that they can teach others, and hopefully it has a broader scale of like waking people up and showing them that there are different ways to care for ourselves and live and be.
Right, absolutely. It's unfortunate that so many people do wait, and I can be guilty of that too, where we wait till the alarm system is like really loud in our own personal bodies, and whether it's mental or physical state where it could be like in so much pain, then there's like, oh, I need to do something different, and I need to invest in myself, and I feel like that's one of the another major hump that as busybody people or just people who are caregivers or moms especially we are always the last, it seems like, to invest in ourselves last before anything else. And and I wonder, what are some ways that you help people, the people that you're building your global team with, your leadership team, are you seeing this as far as like a something for themselves? And how are you utilizing your own, like, are you seeing this with your group, and then what strategies are you using to help
Okay.
increase?
You're speaking my language, girl, because
Yeah.
first of all, what attracted me to this team and this company was I was having extreme mom anxiety. Like, raise your hand if you know mom anxiety. It's a real thing.
Right.
Right. And so the way I describe mom anxiety is like, it's like my senses get overloaded, right? Mom, oh, there's a spill on the floor. Oh, a diaper needs to be changed. It's like everything coming all at once, right? And there's this internal feeling of like, I am gonna combust. This is so much.
Yeah.
So I was actually having mom anxiety. A holistic doctor friend of mine in Tampa said, sister, like, you need to try the CBD. And honestly, I had written off CBD. I was like, I don't want anything to do with it. I've never had one that worked. Like, no, no, no. And she's like, well, I tried them all too, and this really helps. So I was like, okay, send it over. So, and it really, for my nervous system, like, I felt the stress level melting, and I felt that I was not reacting as intensely or sharply like I was with my children. And I just felt like so much more peaceful. And I said, okay, this is what people probably talk about. So number one, like, that experience got me to say I want to share with more people, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing that as a mom was really and as a mom and a wife and a chiropractor, and like trying to build my business, I was realizing that I was not present. This is going back to the present thing that the presence topic that we spoke about at the beginning. I was not being as present with my children and my family as I wanted to be. And as I thought of like building a bigger chiropractic business, I realized, well, that's going to take me away from them more, right? So one of the offers that the company with the CBD had was offered to learn to have an online business, which interestingly enough came at the time of COVID when everyone was looking and learning to work from home.
Yeah.
So I have been able to create some leverage-based or passive income, right, in addition to my chiropractic world, which allow me to step away from the table. So I'm not adjusting as much. I'm not in the office as much, and I am able to be at home with my children more. So for me, that answers a lot of problems for, I think, a lot of moms and a lot of women, and not just women, but my team is all women right now. A lot of women who are just looking for more time freedom and, presence with their family, and less anxiety, less anxiety.
I think
So that's definitely it. And think that's a global thing. That's something that like people around the world can relate to.
Yeah.
So,
Very cool.
and I feel like for me, it goes tandemly with, educating people about different ways to care for the body and harmonizing internally.
Yeah. So it sounds like for you, what was a shift for you is like we get so locked in to a definition of I'm only a chiropractor, I'm only a mom, I'm only a wife, and oftentimes when we get, I feel like I can resonate with what you're saying in a sense that there's different challenges in life. For instance, you're overwhelmed as a mom and anxiety and that aspect help to open up a window for you, it sounds like, and like a different opportunity and redefining like what you want and what would really be worthwhile to invest in your time and energy so that finding other ways to help support or to be more present with your family. And so I think that's really really awesome, and it's a really great way to be able to help coach moms to in your group too to do that, it sounds like. So that's cool. That's awesome.
And it's fun. I think for me, like, I don't know how you were raised, but I was never raised with the concept of the fact that you could actually earn income aside from like with passive income, like doing. I knew as a chiropractor, and if my hands weren't working, I wasn't going to be earning. And so it was, honestly, this concept was introduced to me like years ago when I was in Maui, and I kind of dabbled into it. But I think that a lot of people, it opens their minds to, oh, there are things that are different than what I'm doing now. I think my internet's unstable. Did you hear that?
Oh, it's okay. We can still hear you, so it's good.
Okay. It said it was unstable. So yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like going back to being able to help with reinvesting or putting investing time for yourself, self-care. What are some other ways that you find yourself, helping you regroup yourself during times of challenge and overwhelm?
Silence.
That's powerful.
I don't get it a lot. If you ask me like, Tracy, you can do anything you want today that would like regroup you, I'd be like, I need silence. That's what I crave the most. But
yeah.
Nature, I use essential oils. I'm getting adjusted. For me, body work, something like like massage, cranial sacral, really helps me to reset. Adjustments. Any grounding tool, and my number one like go to for quickly like shifting my energy is dancing. I love to dance. I feel like that's like a mood, shifts my energy, and that's my number one free go to. It's like free therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a trampoline at home, and there's mornings where I just need to wake up, or maybe just in the middle of the day, I just feel really down or overwhelmed. And it's amazing to be able to just turn on music full blast and just bounce up and down. Like I may not have the best like dance moves, but trampoline's really fun because then you're just hopping. And I find that that's a really great way to dissipate energy, and it's low cost, which is awesome. And another thing too, I find that is really worthwhile to just like you talk about silence. It's even in a car. Like today, I just felt like I was hitting traffic constantly, and Colorado right now in Denver, it's super sunny today, and everybody seems to be out. They're ready to go to the mountains. We're just hitting traffic everywhere, and I found that there was just times of irritation, and it was an opportunity to just check in with why am I feeling so irritable right now, and what do I really want to do? Like why am I really truly in a rush? And it's such a great way to, when we have that silence, to reflect and contemplate like what is it that's really going on right now, that's like what am I trying to rush to right now, and if I don't, what am I fearing is not going to happen. And it's just taking the silence, the pausing aspect is so powerful in regrouping in that. So yeah,
it's so true. And I don't think moms really get silence. Like sometimes I'll play hide and seek with my sons, and I have this one wait if they don't know where I am for like a good 20 minutes, and I just sit there to my closet. I'm like,
and you have two boys, right? So how old are they?
Boys. 5 and almost 3.
Yes,
So.
my little boy. It's his birthday today, and he's in between your
Oh.
age. Yeah, he's 4 years old, so that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we find little pauses in between. I feel like we can even find pauses or silence in between when it's like just we're sitting in a bathroom, right? Or we're washing dishes, and just like for a moment, just that mental aspect of I'm gonna commit to 2 minutes of just enjoying what I'm doing or being present when I'm doing without having to feel like I'm rushed, or even setting boundaries for that as well too for ourselves. So yeah.
Absolutely.
And I
I
think
think we should, oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's like a mom reset, like a little red reset, not a timeout, but like a reset. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I think that there's another obstacle, and I think it ties into us keeping ourselves busy, and when we talked about like not being present with at the current moment, or even perhaps even with the investment of self-care for ourselves, is limit the mindset behind that is as long as we stay busy, we can avoid our actual problems. And
Mm-hmm.
do you think that that is a true thing? Are we actually avoiding actual problems when we stay busy and we're piling like all
Oh,
our
yeah.
to-do list?
I think so for sure. I think it's a avoidance mechanism,
Yeah.
or like if you're so busy you don't have time to think or process or be with like what is, and like what is. Sometimes for people it's what is on like a subconscious level or a deeper level,
Yeah.
that the awareness is there but it's not really there. It's like there but it's like oh, definitely hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, you know, the 10 day silent retreat for that one.
right. And I feel like, 10 days, I mean, that's for moms, for myself, and I feel like, I'm like, that's a luxury I don't know if I'll have anytime soon. And I feel
Yeah.
like when we when we even just have those moments of like pausing, of not actually sitting and doing anything, I catch myself thinking like, oh man, I should be doing something right now. I should be doing something productive. I need to, and it's oftentimes trying to mask perhaps a deeper underlying feeling of like of fear or anger, or perhaps like feeling incapable or not, and just filling in the time with, rather than just really truly sitting with what's going on. So I feel like those gaps, when we're making up excuses to stay busy, keeps us from being able to do that. And how do we, I don't know, but how do we start to, how would you say we start to notice that, like in terms of identifying, is this really aligned with what I'm wanting to do, and how is this really truly, am I just avoiding something? How do you?
I got a really great journal. I got it last June, so it's almost coming up on a year. And
Yeah.
it's by a coach. I'm doing some coaching
Yeah.
for entrepreneurs with a woman named Danelle Delgado. She actually lives in Colorado.
Cool.
She wrote a book, and it's called I Choose Joy.
Mm-hmm.
And it is every day you wake up in the morning, every day, the first thing in the morning, is you write 10 gratitudes,
Nice.
right? And so I've gotten into the practice of like asking the question, is this in alignment with the life of my dreams?
Mm-hmm.
Is
That's
this
beautiful.
action in alignment with like my dream life? And doing the gratitudes has really gotten me to like tune in more to like being in alignment with my choices.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful question. It's just, is this in alignment? Something I came across in listening to a brain training podcast was really asking ourselves too, is this next item, or is this next action that I'm going to do going to build power for me, or is this going to drain me or take away a sense of power? And I think that that's really, really important as well too. And you know, you mentioned you're doing some coaching right now, and this is actually you um, actually facing, it sounds like too, before we jumped on the show, you mentioned this is from uh, something that you're trying to achieve personally, is to be on a show and to actually voice yourself.
Well, it was Danelle who gave me the homework, and it was months ago. It wasn't even like I
Oh.
like clicked it off my list, but she was really saying, if you want to reach more people on a global level, you got to put yourself out there, get on radio shows, get on podcasts, do your lives on social media, and so let your message be loud and like ripple to touch the people who are meant to hear it, right? So yes, This is me checking off one of my
Checking off,
assignments.
and one of your assignments. But not only that, it's actually being able to face on like perhaps a something that you've been avoiding. Like you could have been doing something else today. You could have been doing something different, or you could have not reached out, or we wouldn't have had a conversation had you not invested that time. Right? We always have a choice every moment to pick a million different things, and you chose to reach out, and we chose to reach out to each other. And so I feel like it's an opportunity where you identified. I feel like how empowering that you are in just being able to identify something that you want to grow and then doing something to align with it. So just props to you first to do that.
I was on a training with her, the other day, and she was talking about like, why aren't you where you want to be in your life?
Yeah.
Right. And she was looking at that whole like avoidant pattern, and I was looking at like some of the things that like she's assigned us to do I haven't done yet, and then I just realized like there is a divine timing for everything. Like it's on my list, and some things just haven't quite like flowed into action yet, but it's there, and I do think there's a divine timing, and that's part of me. I don't want to say it's not an avoidance, but like honoring my rhythm.
Yeah.
And not over pushing it. Like I know that like success loves speed, and there's this I could pedal to the metal, but it's part of me honoring my rhythm, my pace.
Yeah.
So speaking of rhythm and pace, like I know you do a lot with like gut health and right that connection between brain and gut with what you do, and I just did the most honoring thing I've done for myself since becoming pregnant with my 5-year-old. Is I did a cleanse, and I haven't done anything like that in like literally like 5 or 6 years, 6 years probably. And I was thinking of you because I know that's something that you work with people all the time, and just the amount of like energy and timing and preparation and planning that went into it was just I feel reset. Like it was a reset, but it took a lot of discipline to put that self-care into action. And I know you're working with people all the time on that. And something that it really got me thinking of is, this journey of what we do when we share where healing comes from with people is that it's not a quick fix. And like what we do allows for lifestyle transformation for people. It's not instant. And I think that, I guess the reason that I'm bringing this up is like the busyness goes along with that quick fix mentality. So shifting into presence, shifting into slowing down, it's part of a transformation of the way we live.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it can be like a pressure cooker in a sense, right? We get bumped into so many different instances in terms of this isn't working out. It becomes repetitive, and we may keep with the same patterns and habits all the time. We may constantly feel like, how come I feel so drained and overwhelmed at the end of the day? How come I'm just, I'm not sleeping through the night, or I'm yelling at my kids, or I'm yelling at my husband. Think those little pressure, and you had talked about, being able to follow a rhythm. And oftentimes we have to trust even those negative experiences that are showing up, I think, and trusting like there's a pressure that's building up to a point where at some point we set the boundary and saying enough's enough. This is not aligning of what I'm doing, and there's enough signs and experiences right now that something has to change. And that's where it feels like you're bringing in different tools that you're mentioning, like the CBD, the detox, and it's really enough personal experience where there is enough suffering or struggles that it's like, what's next? Something has to change, and now I'm really willing to listen and commit to some change. And that takes time. And that rhythm of even the negative experiences, I find like, we may think, oh man, I'm such a bad person, or I'm not capable, or this is always happening to me, why is this always happening to me? Enough times that pressure cooker builds, enough pressure, and then bam, something changes. And I think and those changes could be really big, or those changes can be really minimal, but it's enough to check in with our patterns. And so I feel like the detox that you're talking about is something that I find my patients will ask about, like, oh, like what are some things that I could do to start to eat differently? And it may not be a full-on cleanse, right? But it could be just shifting how they're eating, in terms of what they're drinking, maybe less soda pop, things like that. So, just what you're talking about, I feel like we have to get over that hump. And my perspective is I think there's a little pressure cooker that's building up there.
I think so too, and I just think that we have to learn to be gentle with ourselves.
Yeah.
That's like I say it all the time to people, and you have the big picture, but it's not going to happen overnight. Be gentle with yourself, and we make choices that either help us heal or maybe hinder our healing. But all in all, we have to be gentle with ourselves, and for 99% of the time, that's with the way we think and talk to ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And that alone can shift our patterns, and that alone can shift our choices, and that alone can shift, the action that we're going through. If we could just go within our mind and, be reminded, be gentle.
Yeah. And so
this is a home we get to live in the rest of our lives.
Right. And I'm curious too with when you're talking about gentle, and that can be mixed with like perhaps maybe passive too. And I wonder, we have to be mindful about like what does really gentle mean. So I'm curious like what you mean by gentle, being gentle with ourselves.
Oh my goodness, there's so many different things. I mean, for me, it's sometimes the self-talk and not being hard on myself. Being gentle could be like picking up the phone and not hanging my head. Being gentle with myself could be like, oh, I'm not exactly where I want to be in my life, and it's just not for me. It's a lot of times like just like the self-talk, but being gentle could be choosing the kombucha versus the soda pop, or it's in the choices, I think, but also not beating ourselves up if we choose the unhealthy thing, right? And okay, it's just one moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I
think when you're raising kids, you're like telling them how like powerful they are and your body's amazing, and like those little things that sometimes when we're adults we don't always remember to acknowledge what a miracle we still are, each and every moment.
I think that's true. It's like oftentimes we say more mean things to ourselves that we would never say to our own kids.
Anyone else? I know.
And so that's very true. I feel like when we talk about gentle, from my perspective, gentle is about being able to hold space and give some grace for what you're feeling, and not necessarily feel like you have to identify that that's like just because you yelled at your kids, for instance, or you feel like you made a mistake, it doesn't identify you in that situation forever that you're that person. And being able to be gentle in a sense of being able to forgive yourself and still show up even if you mess up. I think that that's really important too, is knowing that there's room for mistakes and we're not perfect, and trusting the process as we keep showing up every single day. And I think that that's an aspect behind being gentle as well too. And yeah, so what a great little reminder as far as
you remind me of like this woman that I adjust as a Pilates instructor, and she's very advanced Pilates instructor, and she was like, oh, I'm doing this March Madness, and I was so disappointed because I was watching my video and I wasn't like aligned, and I was like, well, show it to me, I'd love to see, but I adjust you in stillness, I'd love to see in motion. And so she sent me this video yesterday, and it was like a micro shift. It was so little. I was like, you're so hard on yourself. I'm like, that is like nothing. She is really aligned, but it was like a teeny bit off. And and she's like, yeah, you're right. Like little examples like that. Like we tend to be really hard on ourselves as humans and as moms, and there's a lot of pressure that we put on ourselves. So taking the pressure off and accepting where you're at and knowing where you're at now, it's not where you're going to be forever.
Yeah, I think that one way to take pressure off, and just like how your patient had demonstrated, is just, hey, can I get your opinion? Sometimes we get so in our heads, right, about like something that we get hung up on, like that doesn't look perfect, and that I need to redo that, and there's more pressure behind that, or there's so much demands that we're creating, there's load in our own internal thoughts, that it's so helpful to just learn to reach out and say, can I get some help here? Can I just get this off my chest? I find that that's so much needed, and
I think it's when we have these like multi-passionates, like we can handle a lot, so it's hard to ask for help.
Yeah, it is. It's really hard to ask for help, but it's also very freeing, because then it's a realization that our own journey is like not this lonely journey too. It's what I'm actually personally learning right now is how I can take off the load of being busy, is being able to get ideas from others, and how would they do it? Like, or even just talking it out, and sometimes like, why am I making such a big deal after talking through this? It's actually not that big of a deal. I can let it go. So, yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you too. So, how did you start to create this vision? Because I think one of the biggest aspects with staying busy is we can lose sight of vision. We lose sight of dreams. We lose sight of our why. And oftentimes we think we're busy because we're working towards our why, but that's not always true, right? It could also be something that we're trying. Again, it comes back down to we're staying busy in order to avoid actual problems. And are we staying busy to avoid pursuing our vision, our dreams? Do you think that that rings true to busy people that you've worked with and even yourself?
Well, I know some of the busiest people are the most successful people I know. Like they have it down, you know, and they just. But I also know a lot of them delegate, so they're not doing it all themselves. I honestly, if I'm being really transparent, I lost sight of my vision for several years. I had very horrendous traumatic births, which I was a birth doula before having birth, so that was my world. Was like this whole natural thing, and it came like slamming in front of me. And I had a friend call. She's actually a wife of a chiropractor who I had done some mentorship with. And it was probably about like 5 months after my first son was born. And she said, so how's all your self-care going? Because I had really taken this path of like learning to care for myself. And I had delegated things and I felt so alive and good. And then this came crashing down. So I feel like for me, my vision shifted, right? And it was, you know, because of that trauma and because of, you know, my soul was kind of crushed. I had to kind of redefine my vision, and I'm just getting to the point in I would say this last year, where I am feeling really clear on it wasn't like it didn't take me down, it just redirected me, and in that redirection is like a greater clarity, and also because I had to learn to care for myself in a very different way, in a new way, that is being carried with me into the new vision. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm curious how that started to evolve. I mean, you had a major shift when you became a mom, and after traumatic deliveries and birth, that shifted your own personal physical experience. I'm curious about what was your vision like before babies, and then how did you notice that evolve after, like during your struggles, like post trauma?
Oh, I might cry now. So being a birth doula and a chiropractor, I used to go to all these home births and natural births, and never thought of anything different for myself ever. Like it was like the cows across the street are giving birth naturally, and so my God, like I to the point where it was a little stupid because I didn't even have a backup plan because there wasn't going to be one, right? And so my birth with James was here in Jamaica, and it was a home birth, transferred, heart rate was dropping, past meconium, had to be an emergency C-section. They didn't have an epidural here, so it was a general anesthesia. So I had no memory of meeting this baby for like 3 days, and like I had cried joy for so many other births, and I had like no memory of this baby, no tears of joy. I was just shocked and stunned at it, you know. So there was a lot of therapy I had to do, and a lot of like repairing my body, and a lot of learning to love myself even with that outcome. For me, I realized I had a lot of judgment, like a lot of judgment around C-sections, and a lot of judgment around like a woman who wasn't able to give birth vaginally, and it was all pointing right in my face, right? So then when it came time to have my second baby, I'd done a lot of healing, and I was more of in the acceptance of like, well, this is my vision of what I want, and this can happen. Like it was, you know, and after 78 hours of labor with Jarrett, and I was still only 5 centimeters, I had done everything. I surrendered, and I was like, you know, his heart rate was taking some dips, and I just said, okay, like this is not in my, and it was like my soul was sad. I was really sad. But it wasn't traumatic. It wasn't like third world life death, which was the first one. So I guess to answer your question, what does it look like? I mean, I just really had to learn to love myself with my trauma and going through trauma and learning to not only love myself, but jump into gear to love these two little beings that have chosen me as their mom. And so what happened after Jarrett, I realized after about like a year, he was maybe a year or two of like being a mom and being in the rhythm. And yes, I've done some therapy. I was just kind of a mess emotionally, like a lot of PTSD. And that's what I guess brought me to the CBD, which allowed me to like become clearer in my mind and not so anxious all the way. And so I recognized that for me to move forth, I needed to really get my brain clear. I really, like, in order for me to move forth into the next layer of my vision of how I was going to help people, I needed to really turn to take care of myself. And for this part of my journey, is my mental emotional health. And your question of like how's it moving forward? I mean, I guess for me, like moving forth, it's knowing that we can heal from traumas, to be gentle with ourselves, right? There was and to learn to care. Like there's so many different tools of self-care that I brought with me from prior to that experience, and then so many new ones that I had to learn because I was in a place in my body and my mind and my spirit that I never had been before. And so then again, it brings me to like learning to love and care for myself, so that I can in turn teach others to do the same.
Yeah.
And that part of the mission didn't change, because that was always the mission from before. It's like loving others in the ways in which I love myself. It's just like the how changed a bit.
Yeah. And obviously your why changed a bit because it's more of, it wasn't about you anymore. It was about your kids, your family. And what's your why now?
I honestly thought I was, at one point I had thought, like, after I have my kids, maybe I'll go be a midwife, right? And that just like came crumbling. Like I have no desire to do that anymore. Right. But I do love birthing people through transformation. Like I love witnessing people transform, like in their health, in their life, in their capacity to just be more alive and be a human and go after their dreams and really step foot in a new direction that kind of opens their world up to what's possible.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. So do you have a client or a patient in mind that you can share maybe perhaps your own personal journey and coaching them or walking through that transformation?
I have a lot of people that are coming to my mind right now. Let me see.
Or
I have so many that there's like too many coming.
Yeah. What was one most recently for you that just helped, that you got to learn from as they were going through a transformation?
My most recent one, like the real most recent one, was when I decided to do this cleanse.
Yeah.
I brought one of my patients alongside me. I said, come on, do this with me. And she has never, ever, ever done anything. And you know, like, actually, to tell you the truth, a couple months ago, she did like a week-long juice fast. And it was so hard for her. And right afterwards, she, you know, it went back to like the patterns, right? Because I was like, you know, a week-long juice fast is going to make you like, I know it's great, but like really, you're probably gonna binge afterward. You know, like you're gonna want all your stuff, because it wasn't a long enough time for patterns to be established that's gonna create the habit of what you were doing before the juice fast, right? So she said yes to coming. We did a 6-week journey. It was 6 weeks. It was slow and steady. And it was just really powerful to watch her. And we checked in every day, and I also adjusted her. But to witness her saying, wow, you know, I'm feeling good, or this is a hard day, or wow, you know, like my grandson came over and I actually cheated and I like had ice cream and I feel like crap, you know, and then, so that to me was really powerful. So we just ended, and we ended with like, it was a parasite cleanse. So we were pulling worms and like, you know, doing liver flushes, and she did it. And it was just, for me, it was like walking the day by day and teaching her that success doesn't come overnight.
Yeah.
You know, it was really powerful. And that's the same thing I'm teaching my women who are building, you know, big global businesses with me right now. It's like it's brick by brick, and it doesn't happen overnight, but if you keep at it, that's where the lifestyle transformation happened. That's where you're going to look back and say, oh, wow, right?
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I feel like there's some key components that, for our biggest, I'm a busybody. I know you're a busybody, Dr. Tracy, but what we can learn from our own personal experiences and working with our clients that we want to impart for our audience today is, it sounds like for you, the biggest thing, it sounds like it's being gentle, being able to hold space and be silent, and then and being able to tune in. And the other aspect is doing something different and knowing that every little step, that even though you're doing different, it may not look pretty. It doesn't have to look pretty. It can be very ugly in the process, but you learn a whole lot out of yourself when you're breaking that pattern. And just like you were describing with your patient, doing the detox alongside with you.
Well, and I love that this is this kind of like full circles around something that you said at the beginning, because we get out of chiropractor school and we think like, I'm a chiropractor, and I always had one vision for how that was going to look, and I had no idea that my life would bring different trajectories and different opportunities. Like I was actually kind of closed, just like my birth. I was closed to anything else, and when I started. If we kind of do our time to tell like one quick little story, back 10 years ago, no, it was 2010, I was living on Maui, busy chiropractic practice, or like higher volume, way higher volume than I'm doing now. And I was in tears because my sister was about to have her first baby. And I was like, how do I stop adjusting people to take, I didn't want to just take a week, I want to take like the summer off to go snuggle this newborn baby all the way back in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make this happen and pay my bills and have everything balanced. And one of my patients introduced me to leverage-based income, and she said, here, why don't you have this? It was a product at the time, fund your life, the freedom that you're wanting. And I was like, how does that even work, right? And I was like, no. And she was like, just be open to look at it. And I did. I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it funded my entire summer. And I was craving it. I was craving the time freedom and the freedom away from the table. And it was so powerful for me to experience that and say, this was like, my mind was so shut from it before. I never would have been open to something different, yet I was asking the universe for something different. Yeah. I was like praying for something different, but I was still like closed for the answer. So it came, and it was so inspiring that it stayed in my life for years and years and years. And of course, like that's, my vision of what I'm doing now with teaching other women to kind of do the same. But I think a lot of times that which we're praying for and asking for can be right in front of us.
Absolutely.
We have to be open. We have to be open for it to actually reach us.
Right. And then also I feel like it's also that timing too, where it's not attached to the timing, and just putting that energy out there of like, I'm open to learn, and then I'm willing, and then I'm not attached to the time. I'm okay to not have an answer right away, but it will show up when it shows up.
And that's such a difficult lesson for people when it comes to healing, by the way. Like when you're bringing people through the journey of healing, it's like to explain to people that like there is a rhythm to your body, and there's a timing, and healing has, like, you got to learn to be gentle enough with ourselves and patient enough with ourselves that we allow ourselves to go through the journey that's going to get us that different outcome.
Absolutely. We have in our minds like this is the timeline in which everything should work out. And then that's where the frustration comes in, when we already built that conscious experience. And then there's even more stress with that expectation. When in reality, if we allow ourselves to open up and see during that challenge, what am I learning from this? And then allowing ourselves to go through the rhythm of it, whether it is really hard and loud, and being able to still be open for tools and listening and slowing down. So when it comes to healing, I feel like that's a necessary awareness to have, is like what's a different relationship I'm having right now with my body because I'm going through this, or with my life because I'm going through this. What's different?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tracy. It is such a pleasure to be able to have you on the show. I'd love for our audience to know where they can find you, to learn more about what your journey is and how you can help them. Where can we find you?
Well, the great thing is you don't have to come to Jamaica, although you're welcome to. So you follow me on Instagram at Dr. Dr. Tracy Norman. That's Tracey Norman, which is Norman.
Mhm.
And I'm on Clubhouse at Dr. Tracy Norman. And Facebook is just Tracy Norman.
Mhm.
And if you want to call me, you can call me 876-589-0020 or email drtracynorman@gmail.com. I don't even know why I said call me because I like really don't answer my phone. So you can WhatsApp me or text me. Like I don't even know where that came from, but I rarely answer my phone.
Well, we have so many different ways that we can reach out to Dr. Tracy,
Yes.
and thank goodness for so many different types of outlets. And so, if you are looking to have some guidance, and Dr. Tracy is global, so she's here for you, and it's been a pleasure to be able to have you on the show. Thank you
Thank you
so
for having me, and
much.
thank you for the big vision you have and sharing on this platform to so many people. I hope that
Yeah.
absorbing the wisdom that you're sharing and lives are transformed because of it.
Every
So,
single day, let me tell you, is a learning. This every show is always learning to find voice and learning to be present, like we talked about today. Being able to be open too in terms of learning where everybody else is doing, and I think that's the fun part of the show. So thank you.
love it. Well, I'm going to be tuning in from now on. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Yes, and so we love to
Happy
be able to.
Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday, and we love to be able to end the show with actually asking you, tell me what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life. Be sure to go out there, enjoy some sun, do a little bit of detox, check out something new, and have fun. We'll see you around.
Much love. Bye.
Bye.